He walked through the broken land, his boots crushing ash and metal, the air heavy with smoke, the sky dark and silent. Captain Elias Varn did not stop, his rifle steady in his hands, his mission clear in his mind. Eliminate all remaining alien life, no survivors, no mercy. The war had ended hours ago, but the planet still burned. Destroyed ships lay scattered like broken bones. Tall buildings were now nothing but dust, and the wind carried the smell of fire and loss. Elias had seen too much death, human soldiers, alien creatures, entire cities gone in seconds. But he did not allow himself to feel anything. Emotions were dangerous. Emotions made soldiers weak. A voice crackled in his helmet, cold and sharp. "Captain Varn, scan shows possible life ahead. Finish the mission." "I copy," he replied, his voice calm, almost empty. He moved forward carefully, stepping over a fallen alien body, its form strange, not human, but now still and lifeless. Then he heard it, a small sound. Not an explosion, not a machine, something soft, weak, a cry. Elias froze for a second, his grip tightening on the rifle. Another sound came, closer this time, like someone trying not to be heard, slowly. He turned his head toward a pile of broken metal and burned debris. He raised his weapon, aiming directly at the source. "Come out," he said firmly. Silence, then movement. From the shadows, a small figure appeared. It was an alien child. Tiny, thin, its skin pale with faint glowing lines, its eyes large and filled with fear, its body shaking as it stepped into the open. Elias did not lower his weapon, his finger resting on the trigger. Ready. This was his mission. This was what he was trained to do. The child looked at him, not with anger, not with hate, but with something else. Something Elias had not seen in a long time. Trust. It took a slow step forward, then another, its movements weak and unsure. "Stop," Elias ordered. But the child did not stop. It kept walking toward him, like it did not understand fear. Or maybe it trusted him more than it feared him. Elias felt something strange in his chest. Something tight, something uncomfortable. He pushed it away, focusing on the mission. "Target confirmed," he whispered. His finger tightened on the trigger. One shot, that was all it would take. The child was now only a few steps away, small hands slightly raised, eyes locked on his helmet. Then in a soft, broken voice, it spoke, "Dad?" The word hit him harder than any explosion. Elias froze. His breath stopped, his finger no longer moving. For a moment, the battlefield disappeared. The smoke, the fire, the war, all gone. In its place, a memory. A small human girl, laughing, running toward him, calling him the same word. "Dad!" Elias shook his head slightly, trying to clear his mind. This was not real. This was an alien, not his child, not human, not anything he should care about. "Negative," he said under his breath, almost like he was trying to convince himself. But the child took another step closer, reaching out with a tiny hand. "Dad!" It said again, softer this time. Elias lowered the rifle just a little, confusion in his mind, conflict in his chest. Why was it calling him that? How could it even know that word? The coms in his helmet suddenly came alive again. Louder this time, urgent. "Captain Varn, multiple enemy drones incoming. Clear the area immediately." Elias looked up, hearing the distant sound of machines in the sky, fast and deadly. Then he looked back at the child, small, alone, shaking, trusting him. His mission was clear. Kill all aliens. But in that moment, nothing felt clear anymore. The drones were getting closer, their sound growing louder with every second. The child moved closer to him, standing right in front of him now. Looking up, waiting. Elias had only seconds to decide. Pull the trigger, or protect the child. His grip on the rifle tightened again. But this time, it was not steady. For the first time in the war, Captain Elias Varn did not know what to do. And the sound of death was falling from the sky, getting closer, louder, unstoppable. The choice would change everything. Elias did not pull the trigger. The sound of drones grew louder above him, sharp and fast, cutting through the smoke-filled sky. For one long second, he stood still, staring at the small alien child in front of him, her hands still reaching toward him, her eyes full of quiet trust. Then he made his choice. "Move," he said quickly, lowering his rifle and grabbing the child's arm. She did not resist, she did not cry. She simply held on to him as if she already knew he would not hurt her. Elias pulled her behind a broken wall just as the first drone swept over their heads, its red scanning light passing across the ground, searching. He held his breath, pressing the child close to the cold metal. "Stay quiet," he whispered. The child nodded slowly, her small fingers gripping his armor tightly above them. The drones circled like hunters, their engines humming, their sensors scanning for any sign of life. Elias peeked out slightly, counting them. 3 drones, fast, armed, and deadly. His comms activated again, louder, more aggressive. "Captain Varn, we have visual confirmation. You are near a life signal. Execute the target immediately." Elias stayed silent this time, his jaw tightening. The child looked up at him again, her voice soft, almost fragile. "Dad." The word hit him again, but he pushed the feeling down, focusing on survival. "I'm not your dad," he said quietly, though his voice lacked strength. The child tilted her head slightly, as if she did not understand, but she did not argue. She just stayed close. One of the drones moved lower, its red light scanning dangerously close to their position. Elias knew they would be found soon. He checked his rifle, limited ammo, damaged scope, not enough for a long fight. He looked around quickly, spotting a narrow path between the ruins, leading deeper into the destroyed city. It was risky, but staying here meant death. "Can you walk?" he asked the child. She nodded again, even though she looked weak. "Then stay close. Don't make a sound." He stepped out from cover, moving fast but low, pulling her along with him. The ground was uneven, broken metal and shattered stone everywhere. The child stumbled once, but Elias caught her before she fell. Behind them, a drone suddenly shifted direction, its light snapping toward their movement. "Target moving." A mechanical voice echoed from above. "Run," Elias said, his calm tone gone. They moved through the ruins as fast as they could, the child struggling to keep up, her small breaths quick and uneven. A laser blast hit the ground behind them, sending sparks and dust into the air. Elias turned and fired back, one quick shot, hitting a drone's side, but not enough to destroy it. "Keep moving," he shouted. The child held onto his hand tightly now, fear finally showing in her eyes. They reached a collapsed structure, half buried in debris. Elias pushed aside a broken panel and led her inside. It was dark, quiet, and hidden, for now. They crouched in the shadows, both breathing hard, listening as the drone searched outside. The child slowly leaned against him, her small body shaking. Elias hesitated for a moment, then placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "You're safe. For now," he said, almost to himself. The child looked up at him again, her fear slowly fading, replaced by something softer, trust. She moved closer and rested her head lightly against his arm. Elias froze at the contact, unsure, uncomfortable, but he did not push her away. Instead, he looked toward the entrance, listening carefully. The drones were still outside, still searching. His comms buzzed again, more intense now. "Captain Varn, you are disobeying direct orders. Eliminate the target, or you will be marked as hostile." Elias closed his eyes for a brief second. Marked as hostile. That meant the next time they saw him, they would not hesitate. He opened his eyes and looked down at the child, small, quiet, holding onto him like he was the only thing she had left. His mission was clear. But now, so was something else. He had crossed a line. There was no going back. Outside, the drones slowly moved away, their search expanding inside the darkness. Elias made a silent decision. He would not kill her, no matter the cost. And as the child softly whispered "Dad" again, Elias realized the war was no longer just outside. It had begun inside him too. The drones moved on, their sound fading into the distance, leaving behind a heavy silence. Elias stayed still for a long moment, his rifle raised, his eyes fixed on the broken entrance, waiting for any sign of danger. Nothing came. Only the quiet crackle of distant fires and the slow fall of dust from the damaged ceiling. He lowered his weapon slightly and looked down. The child was still holding onto him, her small fingers gripping his armor like she was afraid he might disappear. Her breathing was uneven, her body still shaking from fear and exhaustion. Elias studied her for the first time, not as a target, but as something else, something he did not want to name. She was smaller than he expected, fragile, her skin marked with faint glowing lines that pulsed softly like a weak light. Her eyes were large, filled with emotion, not anger, not hate, just fear. And trust. It made no sense. He was the enemy, the one who came to destroy her kind, yet she stayed close, like she believed he would protect her. Elias exhaled slowly and removed a small ration pack from his belt. It was one of his last. He hesitated for a second, then opened it and held it out. "Eat," he said simply. The child looked at the food, unsure at first, then slowly reached out and took it. Her hands trembled as she held it, like she had not eaten in a long time. She took a small bite, then another, faster this time, hunger taking over. Elias watched quietly, something heavy settling in his chest. This was not an enemy soldier. This was just a child trying to survive. The thought made his grip tighten on the empty ration wrapper in his hand. He looked away, scanning the room again, checking for exits, for threats, anything to keep his mind focused. But his attention kept returning to her. The child finished the food quickly, then looked up at him again, her eyes softer now, calmer. For the first time, she gave a small, weak smile. It was simple, innocent, and it hit him harder than anything else. "Dad," she whispered again. Elias shook his head lightly, almost tired. "I told you. I'm not your dad," he said, but his voice lacked force. The child did not argue. She just moved closer, sitting beside him, her shoulder lightly touching his arm. Elias stayed still, unsure what to do, but he did not move away. Minutes passed in silence. Then slowly, the child leaned against him, her head resting gently on his side. Her breathing began to slow, her body relaxing for the first time. She was falling asleep. Elias looked down at her, surprised. Out here, in the ruins, with danger everywhere, she felt safe enough to sleep. Safe. With him, he did not understand it, but he did not push her away. Instead, he adjusted slightly, making sure she would not fall, his hand hovering for a moment before resting lightly on her shoulder. It felt strange, unfamiliar, but not wrong. Time passed slowly. The fires outside dimmed, the sky grew darker, and the silence deepened. Elias stayed awake, keeping watch, his senses sharp. But his mind was no longer focused only on the mission. Memories began to surface, unwanted but strong. A small hand holding his, a soft laugh, a voice calling him, "Dad." He closed his eyes for a second, pushing the thoughts away, that life was gone. This was different. This was an alien, an enemy. But when he looked down again, at the small figure sleeping beside him, it did not feel that simple. She shifted slightly in her sleep, her hand tightening on his armor, like she was afraid he might leave. Elias let out a quiet breath. "You're not supposed to trust me," he murmured softly. But she did, and somehow that trust was changing something inside him. A faint sound outside caught his attention. Distant movement, not drones this time. Heavier, slower. Elias tensed, reaching for his rifle again. Search teams, human. He moved carefully, trying not to wake her, but as he shifted, her eyes opened slightly. She looked up at him, confused for a moment, then quickly aware, her small hand gripping him again. "Dad." Elias looked toward the entrance, then back at her. His expression hardened, but his voice was quiet, controlled. "We have to move." The child nodded, even though she was still tired. Elias stood slowly, helping her up. She stumbled slightly, weak from hunger and fear, but she stayed close, holding onto him. Before leaving, Elias took one last look at the dark shelter. It had been a place to hide, a short moment of peace, but it would not last. Nothing did in war. He turned and stepped out into the ruins again, the cold air hitting them both. The danger was still there, closer now. But something had changed. This was no longer just a mission. He was no longer just a soldier following orders. As the child held his hand tightly and walked beside him, Elias understood one thing clearly. He was not protecting an alien anymore. He was protecting a child, And for the first time since the war began, he knew exactly which side he was on. The night had fully taken the sky, cold and heavy, broken only by distant fires that still burned across the ruined city. Elias moved carefully through the shadows, his steps slow and controlled. His rifle ready, his senses sharp, the child walked beside him. Her small hand locked tightly around his fingers, refusing to let go. She was quieter now, but her fear had not disappeared. It lived in the way she flinched at every distant sound, in the way she stayed close to him like he was her only shield. Elias did not pull his hand away. He scanned the area ahead, broken streets, fallen towers, pieces of ships half buried in ash. Then his comm suddenly came alive again, louder than before, more direct. "Captain Elias Varn, you are now in violation of command orders." Elias stopped walking, his jaw tightening. The voice continued, cold and without emotion. "You failed to eliminate the alien life form. You are now classified as compromised." The word hit hard. Compromised meant one thing. He was no longer trusted. He was no longer one of them. "Return and surrender immediately," the voice said, "or you will be treated as hostile." The child looked up at him, sensing the tension even if she did not understand the words. "Dad," she whispered softly. Elias looked down at her, then up at the dark sky. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he reached up in his coms completely, the static cutting off into silence. The choice was final now. No orders, no command, no going back, only survival. A low rumble echoed through the ground, heavier than the drones from before. Elias turned sharply, eyes narrowing. This was different. Not drones, soldiers, human soldiers. A distant beam of light cut through the darkness, sweeping across the ruins, searching. "They found us," Elias said quietly. The child moved closer instantly, pressing against him. "Stay behind me," he added, his voice calm but firm. He guided her toward a collapsed structure, half standing, its interior filled with shadows and broken support beams. They slipped inside just as the sound of boots echoed across the ground outside. Voices followed, clear and human. "Area secure. Keep scanning, he's close." Elias crouched behind a broken wall, pulling the child down with him. Her breathing quickened, but she stayed silent, trusting him completely. The beam of light passed over the entrance, then moved away. But Elias knew they would not leave. They were hunting him now. One soldier stepped closer to the structure, his weapon raised, his armor marked with the same insignia Elias once wore. Elias watched him carefully, his grip tightening on his rifle. This was not like before. These were not enemies from another world. These were his own people. The soldier paused at the entrance, scanning the darkness. "Captain Varn," he called out. "You don't have to do this. Just hand over the alien and come back." Elias said nothing. The child slowly reached for his arm, her small fingers trembling. "Don't go," she whispered. Elias glanced at her, then back at the entrance. "I'm not going anywhere," he said quietly. The soldier took another step forward. "That thing is not a child," he said, his voice sharper now. "It's the reason this war started." Elias felt anger rise in his chest. He looked down at the small figure beside him, scared, weak, holding onto him like she had nothing else. "This is a child," Elias said under his breath, more to himself than anyone else. The beam of light returned, stronger this time, cutting directly into the room. "Last warning." "Captain," the soldier called. "Drop your weapon." Elias raised his rifle slowly, aiming toward the entrance. His decision was clear. "I'm not your captain anymore," he said, his voice steady. For a second, everything went silent. Then chaos exploded. Gunfire filled the air, flashes of light cutting through the darkness, bullets striking metal and stone. Elias fired back, precise and controlled, forcing the soldiers to take cover. "Stay down," he shouted to the child, pushing her behind the wall. She curled up, covering her head, but her eyes never left him. Elias moved quickly, changing position, using the shadows to his advantage. He knew their tactics, their movements, their patterns, because they were his. Another soldier rushed forward, trying to flank him. Elias reacted instantly, firing a single shot that dropped the soldier before he could get close. But more were coming, too many. A blast hit the wall near him, sending debris flying, knocking him off balance. He hit the ground hard, pain shooting through his side. "Dad!" The child cried, her voice breaking for the first time. Elias pushed himself up, ignoring the pain. "I'm okay," he said quickly. Even if it wasn't fully true, the soldiers were regrouping outside, preparing for another push. Elias knew he could not hold them off forever. He looked around quickly, searching for a way out. Then he saw it, a narrow passage behind the structure, half hidden by fallen metal. An escape route. He turned to the child, his expression serious but calm. "We're leaving," he said. She nodded immediately, trusting him without question. Elias grabbed her hand again, holding it tight. As the soldiers prepared to move in, Elias made his choice once more, not to fight, but to protect. They ran into the darkness, leaving behind the battle, the past, and everything that once defined him. And as the voices of his former allies echoed behind him, Elias understood one thing clearly. He was no longer running from the enemy. He was running from his own kind, and this time he would not stop. The narrow passage swallowed them in darkness as Elias and the child moved deeper into the broken ruins. Behind them, the sounds of gunfire slowly faded, replaced by distant shouts and scanning lights that searched the empty structures. Elias did not stop running until the noise was far enough that it blended with the wind and collapsing metal. Only then did he slow down, pressing his back against a cracked wall. Breathing heavily, the child was still holding his hand, but now her grip was weaker, her small body shaking more than before. Elias looked down at her and immediately noticed it. She was not just scared, she was hurt. A thin line of glowing fluid-like energy had formed on her arm, flickering weakly, like something inside her was breaking down. "Stay still," Elias said quickly, crouching beside her. He examined her arm carefully, not fully understanding what he was seeing. It was not blood, not in a human sense, but it reacted like it, fading and glowing in unstable pulses. The child winced slightly as he touched near it, but did not pull away. "Does it hurt?" he asked softly. She nodded slowly, her eyes watering. Elias frowned, his mind searching for answers. She had survived war, hunger, fear, and now even injury. Yet she still stayed close to him, still trusted him. It made no sense, but he could not ignore it anymore. He opened a small field kit from his armor, something meant for soldiers, not alien biology. Still, he tried. He applied a basic healing patch over the glowing mark, hoping it would stabilize whatever her body was doing. The child watched him closely the entire time. Not afraid, just curious. When he finished, the glow dimmed slightly. It was not perfect, but it helped. Elias let out a slow breath, sitting back against the wall. For the first time since this started, he felt something other than survival instinct. Concern, not for a mission, for her. The child slowly leaned against him again, this time not from fear, but from exhaustion. "Dad," she whispered faintly, almost asleep. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, but did not respond. Outside, the world was still dangerous, still hunting them. But here, in this broken silence, there was something fragile forming. Time passed slowly. Elias stayed alert, listening for movement. But his attention kept drifting back to the child. Her breathing had steadied, her body resting against his side. He noticed something else now. She was warm, not just physically, but in a way that felt unfamiliar in this dead world. A small life refusing to give up, a life that should not exist in this war. Suddenly, a distant explosion echoed through the ruins, shaking the ground slightly. Elias instantly moved, pulling the child closer behind him, his rifle raised. But it was far away, not near them. Still, it was a reminder. They were not safe, not even here. He looked toward the direction of the sound, calculating distances, escape routes, threats. Then he felt a small tug on his sleeve. The child was looking at him again, not scared this time, but worried about him. "Are they coming?" she asked softly, struggling with the words. Elias hesitated, then nodded slightly. "Yes," he said honestly. She looked down for a moment, then surprised him by gripping his hand tighter. "Then I stay," she said simply. Elias blinked, confused. You should run if you can, he replied, but she shook her head. No. You stay. It was simple, broken language, but the meaning was clear. She was not leaving him, not even now. Elias felt something tighten in his chest again, something he could not fully control. He had been trained for war, for orders, for missions, but not for this. Not for someone choosing him. Footsteps echoed faintly in the distance again, closer this time. The search was tightening. Elias stood slowly, pulling the child up with him. We move again, he said quietly. She nodded immediately, ready even though she was tired. They left the shelter and moved deeper into the ruins, using shadows and broken structures for cover. Every step was careful, controlled, silent. Elias kept his body slightly in front of her, shielding her without thinking anymore. It was becoming natural, too natural, as they moved. Elias noticed something strange in the environment. The destruction here was not random. It was targeted, precise, as if the planet itself had been erased carefully, not just destroyed. That thought stayed in his mind. But he pushed it aside for now. Survival first, answers later. The child stumbled once, and Elias caught her instantly. You okay? He asked. She nodded again, refusing to slow them down. Hours felt like minutes in the ruins. Finally, they reached a collapsed transit tunnel, partially buried but still open enough to pass through. Elias looked inside, scanning it quickly. It was risky, but it led underground, away from open skies and scanning drones, safer, for now. He turned to the child. We go down, he said. She did not question him, she just followed. As they stepped into the darkness of the tunnel, the world above slowly disappeared behind them, and for the first time since the war began, Elias felt like he was not just escaping death, but moving towards something unknown, something that no longer looked like a mission, but like a future he never expected to have. The underground tunnel was colder than the surface, damp air pressing against their skin as Elias and the child moved deeper into the darkness. The only light came from small broken panels in his armor and faint glowing dust drifting through the air like dying stars. Elias slowed his steps, listening carefully, every sound amplified in the narrow space. Drip, drip. Water echoed somewhere ahead. No footsteps, no machines. For now, they were alone. The child stayed close behind him, her hand still holding his fingers tightly, as if letting go would mean losing everything again. Elias noticed her breathing was calmer now, but her strength was still weak. You need rest, he said quietly. She shook her head slightly, stubborn in a way that surprised him. No. Stay, she replied softly. Elias did not argue. Instead, he led her to a small break in the tunnel wall, a shallow alcove barely big enough for both of them. Sit, he ordered gently. She obeyed immediately and curled up against the wall, her glowing lines dimmer than before. Elias crouched in front of her, studying her again. Something was wrong. But not just physically, it was deeper. Her energy was unstable, like her body was not meant to survive long without something she had lost. He did not understand it fully, but he could see she was fading slowly. Why did you follow me? He asked suddenly. The child looked up at him, confused by the question. Then she answered simply, because. You stay. Elias felt that answer hit harder than anything he had heard in years. He turned slightly, looking into the tunnel darkness, trying to hide the conflict in his expression. A soldier was not supposed to feel this. A soldier followed orders, completed missions, and moved on. But this was different. Behind them, faint vibrations passed through the ground. Elias immediately stood, weapon raised, but it was not footsteps. It was distant movement, scanning systems above, still searching, still hunting. They were not safe yet, not even here. The child noticed his tension and stood up too, though unsteady. Are they here? She asked quietly. Not yet, Elias replied. But they will be. Silence followed, heavy and long. Then something unexpected happened. The child slowly stepped closer to him and gently grabbed the edge of his armor. Don't leave, she said again, softer this time. Elias looked at her, and for a moment he did not respond, because something inside him had already made a decision he could not undo. He knelt slightly, bringing himself to her level. I'm not leaving, he said. Her eyes widened slightly, as if she was afraid to believe it. Elias hesitated, then added, "Not you." A strange silence followed those words. Not fear, not danger, just understanding forming between two broken survivors. Suddenly, a deep sound echoed far above them. A massive mechanical pulse. Elias recognized it instantly. Orbital scan. They were sweeping the planet, locating life signatures. If they stayed here, they would be found within hours, maybe less. "We have to move again," he said, standing quickly. But this time the child did not look afraid. She simply nodded, as if she had already accepted whatever came next. They moved deeper into the tunnel system, following old broken paths that once belonged to alien infrastructure. Strange symbols lined the walls, glowing faintly in fading colors. Elias ran his hand across one of them briefly, analyzing it. This civilization had been advanced, structured, intelligent, yet it was gone now, reduced to silence and ruins. Why? That question kept growing in his mind, but there was no time to answer it. They reached a larger underground chamber, partially intact, with broken pillars and collapsed energy cores scattered around. It looked like a forgotten place, untouched for a long time. Elias checked the surroundings carefully before allowing the child to enter. "This will do," he said. The child stepped in slowly, looking around in quiet awe for the first time. She seemed less afraid, more curious. She walked toward a glowing fragment on the floor and gently touched it. It reacted softly, pulsing light in response to her presence. Elias watched closely, his instincts alert. Then something unexpected happened. The glowing energy in the room slowly responded to her body, faintly synchronizing with her own unstable light. Elias frowned. "You recognize this place?" he asked. She looked at him and shook her head, but her expression said something else. Familiar, but forgotten. Suddenly the ground trembled slightly again, stronger this time. Elias immediately moved toward her, pulling her back. "They are close," he said. Above them, the orbital scan intensified. Their position was now exposed. Elias looked around quickly, calculating escape options, but this time there were fewer choices. The tunnel system was collapsing in places, unstable and old. The child held onto his arm again. "Dad," she whispered, but this time it was not a question, it was comfort. Elias looked at her for a long second, then made a decision that changed everything. He tightened his grip on his rifle and said quietly, "Stay close." And for the first time, he did not say it as a soldier, but as someone who refused to lose her, even if the entire galaxy came looking for them. The underground chamber trembled again as the orbital scan intensified above them. A deep mechanical pulse rolled through the ruins, shaking dust from broken pillars and making faint glowing symbols flicker on and off. Elias stood between the child and the entrance, rifle raised, eyes scanning every shadow, every possible path. This was it. The net was closing. There was no more hiding, only time left. The child stayed close behind him, unusually calm now, as if fear had already burned out and left only trust. She held onto his armor gently, not pulling, just staying connected. Elias could feel her presence even without looking. It was small, fragile, but steady in a way that made no sense in this war-torn world. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. She nodded. Above them, the sound of descending ships grew louder, not drones this time, full extraction units, heavy military craft, human command forces arriving to end what they now saw as a betrayal. Elias knew the moment they landed, everything would collapse. He checked his weapon. Low ammo, damaged systems, nothing reliable left. But he was still standing, still breathing, still between her and them. The child suddenly looked up at him, her glowing lines flickering softly. "Are they bad?" she asked, struggling with the words. Elias hesitated, because the truth was not simple anymore. "They think they are right," he said finally. She tilted her head slightly, trying to understand. Above them, a loud impact echoed. The extraction units had landed. Boots echoed through the tunnel system above. Coordinated, disciplined, searching. "Captain Elias Varn," a voice called through a loudspeaker. "Surrender the asset immediately." Elias tightened his grip on the rifle. "Asset," he repeated quietly, almost bitter. The child looked at him again. Confused by the word, he shook his head slightly. "You are not an asset," he said softly, more to himself than anyone else. The footsteps got closer. They were entering the lower tunnels now. Moving toward their position, Elias looked around quickly, calculating options, but there were none left. Only one path remained, forward, deeper into the ruins, into unstable alien infrastructure that could collapse at any moment. He turned to the child. "We run," he said. She nodded immediately, no hesitation. They moved together, fast now, deeper into the chamber network, behind them. The soldiers entered the chamber they had just left, lights cutting through the darkness, scanning every corner. Heat signatures detected. "Moving east corridor," one voice reported. Elias heard it clearly. They were tracking them precisely now. He pulled the child through narrow passages, broken walkways, and collapsed energy fields, each step more dangerous than the last. The structure around them began to react to the orbital interference above. Lights flickering violently, systems destabilizing. Elias realized something quickly. The entire underground system was becoming unstable. If they stayed too long, it would collapse completely. But escaping meant exposure. Either way, the end was closing in. They reached a wide circular chamber, the deepest part of the structure, filled with massive broken energy cores and alien architecture. It was beautiful in a dying way, glowing softly even in destruction. The child stopped for a moment, looking around, almost mesmerized. Elias gently pulled her forward. "No time," he said. But then something unexpected happened. The glowing energy in the room reacted strongly to the child, pulsing brighter as she stepped closer to the center. Elias frowned, watching carefully. The child reached out slightly, and the entire chamber responded, light flowing through the broken systems like they recognized her presence. "What are you?" Elias whispered without meaning to. She looked at him, unsure. Above them, alarms began to echo through the tunnels. The soldiers had reached the outer layers of the chamber system. Close now. Too close. Elias raised his rifle again, preparing for the final stand. But the room itself began to change. Energy patterns shifted, stabilizing around the child, forming a faint protective field, as if the structure itself was reacting to her survival instinct. Elias stared in disbelief. She was not just hiding in this place. She was part of it. A deeper truth began forming in his mind, something no report had ever mentioned. The child was not just a survivor. She was connected to this world, and possibly to something much larger. A sudden explosion echoed in the distance. Closer than before, the soldiers had breached the final barrier. "Last chance, Vard," the voice echoed again. "Step away from the target." Elias looked at the child. She was watching him now. Not afraid, just waiting for his choice. The same choice he had been making since the first moment he saw her. Kill or protect. But now, it was no longer just about survival. It was about meaning. He slowly lowered his rifle. The soldiers entered the chamber entrance, weapons raised, lights locking onto them. "Stand down." One shouted. Elias stepped forward slightly, placing himself fully between them and the child. And for the first time in his life, he did not follow an order. He created one. "She is not a weapon," he said firmly. Silence followed, then tension, then weapons slowly rising again. But before anything could happen, the chamber flared with bright light, responding fully to the child's presence. The energy system activated completely, forming a glowing barrier around them, separating them from the soldiers. Elias turned toward the child, stunned. She looked just as surprised, as if she had not fully understood what she was doing. But now there was no turning back. The chamber was waking up, and whatever she truly was, it had just chosen them.